Peace and blessings to all those that may be listening right now. This is the Cypher Audio Files hosted by your friendly neighborhood health dealer, a.k.a. Drew Down, a.k.a. Drewski, a.k.a. Drewsif, a.k.a. Drew Hill, a.k.a. K. Deezy. I go by many names, but I operate from a small but firm handful of principles that have allowed me to build myself into a man with a life that allows me to sleep peacefully at night. The audio file you're about to hear is just one of many that will allow you to extract the value that I gained from my roller coaster of life experiences just by simply listening via your mind, heart, and ears, of course. The things you'll hear may resonate instantly and be right on time, or they may need time to marinate and mature in your being. In either regard, I can guarantee you that you will use these lessons at one or multiple points in your life to recreate and solidify your reality exactly as you wish it to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the auditory picture I will proceed to paint. Peace. This is the drops of oil in a spoon, why happiness is a responsibility. No matter where you were in 2020, I guarantee you that COVID-19 had a major impact on your daily life. For pretty much all of the world, this was also true, as we had to abandon the busy schedules that we once knew to retreat to our homes and minimize the spread of the virus. And due to the restrictions of social distancing, the social interactions that we used to have had to also be abandoned. So therefore, we had to look for new places and new ways to be entertained. And for many people, this occurred in the confines of their own homes with things like picking up old hobbies, binge watching certain TV shows, and for me personally, it was reading a variety of books. And out of the probably 4 or 5 books that I read around this time, it was one that stuck out still to this day to me. And it's well known around the world. It's a book by the name of The Alchemist. And it was written by a guy named Paulo Coelho. And if you don't know the definition of alchemy, the technical definition is pulled from the ancient times, which was the transformation of matter. And for the most part, this was people trying to change like base metals into gold because that was the currency back then, and you became rich by attaining gold. So that was the aim for most people back then that performed alchemy. But when we talk about the book, The Alchemist, most people wouldn't classify it as a self-help book, and by technical terms. But in my opinion, that's exactly what it is, because just like we said that the definition of alchemy is the transformation of matter, typically with most self-help books or videos, gurus, mentors, whatever, the aim is to transform your reality, your situation, which could be said to be the matter within your life. And the thing about The Alchemist is it tells the story of a young boy named Santiago. And Santiago has a dream to go see the pyramids and the treasures that they hold. And he feels deeply within himself that going to see this will change him as a person and allow him to start living the life that he wants to live. He just feels this inside. So he has this deep desire to make this trip. And throughout the book, as he's making this trip, he pretty much meets a lot of milestones that come along with going from a boy to a man. He meets a woman that he falls in love with. He meets various mentors with stories of their own that kind of lay out to him how to become an alchemist, how to gain control of his situation and his happiness. So within the book, like I said, it's a bunch of other smaller stories that are woven into the main story. And the one that stuck out to me the most during this time, during COVID, was the drops of oil in the spoon. And the story of the drops of oil in the spoon perfectly illustrates why happiness is a responsibility of ours. And before I get into how it resonated with me and how I truly began to understand this concept, I want to read you the story itself just so you can get a full picture of your own. A merchant sent his son to learn the secret of happiness from the wisest of men. The young man wandered through the desert for 40 days until he reached a beautiful castle at the top of a mountain. There lived the sage that the young man was looking for. However, instead of finding the holy man, our hero entered the room and saw a great deal of activity. Merchants coming and going, people chatting in the corners, a small orchestra playing sweet melodies, and there was a table laden with the most delectable dishes of that part of the world. The wise man talked to everybody, and the young man had to wait for 2 hours until it was his time for his audience. The sage listened attentively to the reason for the boy's visit, but told him that at the moment he did not have time to explain to him the secret of happiness. He suggested that the young man take a stroll around his palace and come back in 2 hours' time. However, I want to ask you a favor, he added, handing the boy a teaspoon in which he poured 2 drops of oil. While you walk, carry the spoon and don't let the oil spill. The young man began to climb up and down palace staircases, always keeping his eyes fixed on the spoon. At the end of 2 hours, he returned to the presence of the wise man. So, asked the sage, did you see the Persian tapestries hanging in my dining room? Did you see the garden that the master of gardeners took 10 years to create? Did you notice the beautiful parchments in my library? Embarrassed, the young man confessed that he had seen nothing. His only concern was not to spill the drops of oil that the wise man had entrusted to him. So go back and see the wonders of my world, said the wise man. You can't trust a man if you don't know his house. Now more at ease, the young man took the spoon and strolled again through the palace, this time paying attention to all the works of art that hung from the ceiling and walls. He saw the gardens, the mountains all around the palace, the delicacy of the flowers, the taste with which each work of art was placed in its niche. Returning to the sage, he reported in detail all that he had seen. But where are the 2 drops of oil that I entrusted to you? Asked the sage. Looking down at the spoon, the young man realized that he had spilled the oil. Well, that is the only advice I have to give you, said the sage of sages. The secret of happiness lies in looking at all the wonders of the world and never forgetting the 2 drops of oil in the spoon. Now, how does this story illustrate that happiness is a responsibility? Well, first, I want you to think about how people always say that love is an action. Love is not something that you find or can get from another person. It's more so something that is a result of a certain set of actions that show you that a person loves you, or show you that, or you showing that you love yourself. There's certain things you have to do to create an atmosphere of what we call love. Now, in the same regard, when we talk about happiness, it's a certain set of steps and a constant maintenance that you have to uphold to keep happiness in your life. But it's only your responsibility, because at the end of the day, happiness is a result of perception. And your perception is essentially the only thing that you control in terms of the things that go on in our daily lives. If we think about the law of cause and effect, it's certain causes that you're not responsible for in everyday life that you still have to deal with the effects of. And things like this happen on both the small and large scale every single day. You could be in your car driving and somebody may cut you off in traffic because they're late to work. And this may cause you to have to come to an abrupt stop. Now, you could react in one of 2 ways. You could either just be thankful that you didn't get in an accident, or you may get angry and blow your horn and yell, maybe even shoot them a middle finger out the window. Now, you're not responsible for this person being late to work, but the effect was that you had to come to an abrupt stop. And the only part that you control about that is how you view it, how you view that effect. Now, this could be considered a small lesson in happiness being a responsibility, the drops of oil in the spoon. But I learned in terms of a major scale. So a fun fact about me is that I played international football during winter months, anywhere from like January to June every year. So in 2020, I was in Mexico playing ball, and COVID-19 hit and shut the whole world down, so it shut my season down too. halfway through. So I had to abruptly leave and go back home to Alabama and try to get back to what I could as far as a normal life, working and spending family time, whatnot. And when I initially had to make that trip back, I kind of had a trouble. I kind of had trouble with being happy because I felt like I was being deprived or like ripped away from an experience that I deemed to be like somewhat of a retreat for me, getting away from the crazy life in the United States, the people I had always known, the scenery I had always known, so having to go right back to that after being in such a new, different place, it was kind of a damper on my life, if I'm really being honest. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't because I didn't have things to be happy about. It was because my perception was off. At the time, being on that high from being in a place like Mexico that was so new to me, I had fell into this entitlement or assumption that all my moments should be like that. I wasn't quite aware of the low moments in life, or I won't even call them low. I'll call them valleys instead. So we'll call the high moments hills and the low moments valleys, because those two types of terrain both serve their purposes on the in the world as well. So applied to life, this was a valley in my life. I had to go back home to where I was, where I knew everything. So I felt like this was like I couldn't be happy, But just like I made the analogy earlier of the traffic incident, this moment in life for me was an effect that I had to deal with from a cause that I wasn't responsible for. So at the time, what I didn't realize is that my perception could have kept me from feeling as if I was deprived or being ripped away from that moment, because if you look at the situation itself, COVID, it's a lot of different ways that it went for a lot of different people. Like certain people lost family members during this pandemic. Certain people lost their jobs. Certain people lost their homes, lost all kind of different things. And I didn't lose any of these things, but at that time, I wasn't looking at it from their perspective. I went back to see all my family. I had a place to stay. I had a car. I had a way to get around. I had financial stability because we was getting the Trump money back then. But a lot of people didn't get to have all those luxuries, So I was looking at it one-sided. So I caused myself to feel deprived, and the effect was that I was unhappy. I was looking at what I didn't have, so as a result, I was unhappy. So after I read this story, it took a little while, but when it finally began to resonate with me that I was just like the merchant's son, I realized that just like he had been entrusted with the drops of oil in the spoon, I had been given small things to appreciate and to stay keen and aware of, like my family being within a call's reach or a text, still having my car, still having my house, still having financial stability, throughout this worldwide crisis, but I had also just been given a moment to behold the marvels of the world, because a lot of people that don't leave the country, they don't ever go see a place like Mexico on their own. So I had been given both of these 2 points in life, but it was me in the middle with my perception, with the responsibility of cultivating my own happiness, staying balanced, staying aware to the things that were to be appreciated in either end of that spectrum, So that's where I realized that happiness is my responsibility. And over the years, I've been able to cultivate that more and more and more to get sharper in that discipline. So now it's very few moments where I would even consider myself unhappy because I kind of find the value in any single moment that I deal with in life. Like right now, I'm sitting in my room making this audio, but it's completely silent in my house. It's peace. I'm looking at that as peace. Some people might say it's boring, but I look at it as a peaceful environment, because there's other times where it's like you can't get away from the noise. And that's something I'll talk about in the next section of this audio. But yeah, like just this simple moment right now, just being able to sit and hear myself think and get my thoughts out, that's something that I appreciate, because there's a lot of moments where I can't do that, where I have to take on other people's thoughts and views on life and the things they want me to do, So to be in my own space, in my own aura, in my own atmosphere of mine, I appreciate that. I thank the Most High for that. And it's going to come a moment where I have to go, where I want to go out and I want to experience other people's perspectives and views on life and et cetera, but that time will come, but I'll be in a mind state to appreciate that for what it brings, but in either regard, it's still a balance between the two, because neither one is eternal, but what is eternal is my responsibility to stay happy between the two. Now, even though happiness is your responsibility, it's not always your fault if you ever feel unhappy or you have a perception on your current situation that may not be the best. Because the society we live in today has a very strong effect on the way we view our daily situation. And this is not by accident, of course. The food we're given, the TV shows we're encouraged to watch, the advertisements we hear while we're watching these TV shows, etc., all have an effect on our daily perception. And we can become unhappy just by taking in these external things that are purposely put in front of us to make us easier to manipulate. Because if you think about it, when most people get unhappy or unsatisfied, they usually buy things they don't need. They usually eat food that's not good for them. People tend to binge eat, like they eat a tub of ice cream, or go get a donut or some cookies, or go get a double cheeseburger, anything that might make them feel that void that they might be experiencing at the moment. They allow people back into their lives that have shown them time and time again that they're not good for them, just to put a Band-Aid over that scar of unhappiness for a temporary moment. And also within our society, it's a certain group of people that know that most of us respond in this way. And there's a market that's been created to take advantage of that as well. That's why we always see it's always new cars coming out, new clothes, new this, new that, new food that we need to buy and try, and they paint an experience around these items to make us believe that if we purchase them and consume them, that we'll experience happiness. They don't just show you a picture of a double cheeseburger and say, hey, come buy this. Nah, they usually use an athlete or somebody eating that same burger they want you to come by, and you naturally equate the lifestyle and the status that athlete has, and you see them eating that burger, so you be like, hey, I want to be like them, so I'm going to go eat that burger, because you want that happiness that you deem them to have. Or if you look at even alcohol commercials, they don't just show you the bottle of alcohol. They show you an experience. They show you the guy in the club with all the girls around him, or the girl with all the guys flocking to her in the club because they had a sip of this liquor or that champagne or whatever you want to say. But all in all, it's what I like to call a moving goalpost. If you're already familiar with football, you already know what a field goal kick is. But if you're not, a field goal kick is basically when a team attempts to score 3 points after a failed offensive drive, or they kick an extra point after scoring a touchdown. But the way that they score these points is to kick the ball through a thin goal post. It's two big bars that's right down the middle of the field at the back of the end zone. So the kicker has to aim and kick this ball to make it in between these two bars. Now, imagine if when the kicker, mind you, in a regular football game, the kicker already has to go against the other team trying to block the kick. his own holder, he has to make sure his holder is holding the ball correctly. So when he kicks it, that the ball doesn't go far left or far right. And you also got to fight against the elements, because sometimes it's wind, it's rain, snow, whatever you want to say. And all these things can affect where that ball goes. Now, whether you know football or not, imagine if the other team was able to move this goalpost, like literally physically move it as the kicker was trying to kick it. Now, how many times do you think a kicker would actually be successful in his kick if the other team was allowed to do this? And that's what I'm illustrating in my point. That's why I say society's idea of your happiness is a moving goalpost, because that's essentially what's going on. Anytime you find something to be satisfied with and appreciative of, they come flashing something else in front of you to make you believe that your current perception is outdated or it's not enough. So you, as the kicker in this analogy, are attempting to score points being your happiness, and the other team is society. But instead of going by the rules, society moves their goalposts. They constantly change and reform the bounds with which you find your happiness, or you build your happiness, rather, cultivate your happiness. And when you consume these products, these shows, all these different things that society puts in front of you, and you attempt to score your happiness, and you constantly miss, because these things, they have a temporary date on them, so they won't provide you the same happiness as they did when you first purchased them, or you first brought them into your life, rather. And this is where your frustration and unhappiness starts to build, but this is a constant cycle, because you can never, by society standards, you can never find anything to be satisfied with, because everything they bring to you is made to be inadequate. So you remain a customer, you remain in that cycle. And this is where it becomes your responsibility to maintain happiness in your life. It'll always be big things for you to marvel at and be inspired by. And it'll also always be small foundational aspects of your life to be appreciative and thankful for. And like I said before, there'll be you in the middle with the perception of your current life situation and the need for you to balance in between those 2 points to keep your happiness as an eternal part of your life, as a constant, an everyday thing, something you're entitled to, but something that you also have to work for. So to close out this audio and get you on your way, I want to give you 5 ways that I use to cultivate my own happiness and maintain it still to this day. Number 1, showing gratitude. And this just means being thankful for what your current situation is, and also being thankful for what it could be. Number 2 is reflection. And reflection goes hand in hand with gratitude, because you have to know where you've come from to know where you're going, where you're capable of going, but also to appreciate where you are. The third thing I used was balance. And to use balance, I had to realize the law of polarity, realizing that everything exists on a scale. So we're talking about happiness in this audio. So just like there's happiness, there's sadness. But once again, it's you in the middle. So you have to balance yourself and allow yourself to feel either end of the spectrum when certain things occur in your life, but you can't stay there too long. So you have to let these feelings and states of mind come and go as they please, but always remain aware to where you stand in between the 2 points. You're not neglecting yourself in any of life's various situations. Number 4 is reverse psychology. And this may sound funny to you to use as a means to cultivating happiness in your life, but the way that I used it myself was I thought about not only the things that I did want in my life, or the things that I did want to experience, but I also thought about the things that I didn't want to experience in life. Thought about the things that I didn't want to have in my realm, in my atmosphere, So I found balance in not only the presence of the things that I wanted, but also the absence of the things that I didn't want. And last but not least, is focus. Focus meaning I really took a hard look at the things that I wanted to be in my life, the experiences I wanted to have, the kind of people I wanted to be around. And relative to my happiness, I started to look at all the things that didn't align with those aspects or those standards for myself. And I started to eliminate things. So just by default, I became happier. I was able to more easily cultivate the happiness that I seeked in my life because I took certain things away. I didn't have to go find anything or go get anything or buy anything or find anybody, go any place. I just had to let certain things go. So therefore, I naturally made room for the things that I did want and consequently made room for happiness in my life. With that being said, I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this edition of the Cypher Audio Files. Much more to come in the future. I hope everything you heard here today provided you with a ton of value that you can use to shape the life that you want and that you deserve. Remember, health ain't on the shelf, and it applies to the mental, spiritual, and physical. So if you want to see and hear more content that can help you cultivate all three levels, I want you to go to my website, cyphertrace.com. That's CIPHERTRES.com. And check out everything I have to offer there. And you can also click the links that I provided there. Follow me on all my socials to get my day-to-day content and stay in the loop for any new things I may be bringing forth. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.